Well, g'day curd nerds. Today we're making Crescenza, or Stracchino. That's the same cheese. Well, it's an Italian cheese made with cow's milk. Goes by two names, either Stracchino or Crescenza, and it is a fresh cheese, fairly fresh. Now, unfortunately, due to some illness, this cheese has gone a little bit longer than it should have. You can normally eat it within 7 days. Now, the good thing is I took the recipe's warning and added some Geotrichum Candidum, which is a white mould, to the milk, as well as the other ingredients. So this cheese has got a nice white coating all over it of powdery mould. Anyway, let's get on and see how we made Crescenza, or Stracchino.
So the milk is pasteurised, unhomogenised from Inglenook dairies. The ingredients: I'm using 4 litres or 4 quarts of whole cow's milk, a quarter of a teaspoon or 1.25 millilitres of calcium chloride diluted in quarter of a cup of non-chlorinated water, an eighth of a teaspoon or 0.75 millilitres of liquid rennet, single strength, diluted in quarter of a cup of non-chlorinated water, 56 grams or 2 ounces of fresh yogurt, 1.5 tablespoons of cheese salt, and 1/64 of a teaspoon of Geotrichum Candidum. Now heat your milk up to 38 degrees Celsius or 100 Fahrenheit. Then add in your calcium chloride solution. Give that a good stir through. And then we're going to add the salt. Normally you don't add the salt at the start of the cheese making process, but with this cheese you do. So add in your 1.5 tablespoons of salt. This is non-iodized salt. So we're going to stir the salt and the calcium chloride through the milk. Now we're going to add the yogurt into the milk. So this is 2 ounces or 56 grams of yogurt. It's best to get the ones with the live cultures in it. So this is a replacement for thermophilic starter culture. This works very well indeed. So before we stir that in, we're going to add our 1/64 of a teaspoon of Geotrichum Candidum to the milk. This helps it last longer and doesn't go off as quick as the cheese normally would if you didn't add the Geotrichum Candidum. So stir the milk thoroughly, so you're now stirring the geo and the yogurt, and stir until you don't see any lumps in the milk of the yogurt. That's all dissolved. So we're going to cover that and we're going to allow it to ripen for 30 minutes. So 30 minutes later, we're going to just gently stir the cream that's floated to the top back into the milk. And then we're going to add the rennet solution to the milk. Gently pouring that in whilst you're stirring the milk. I'm going to stir that through for no more than 1 minute. So I'm going to cover that and we're going to allow the milk to set for 60 minutes at 38 degrees Celsius, 100 Fahrenheit. So I'm going to check for a clean break now. Just put the knife in at a 45-degree angle, turn it, lift, and if it looks clean, a clean split, then it's all good to go. We're going to cut the curds into 5 centimetre or 2-inch columns. So it's vertical cuts only, no horizontal cuts at this stage. So we're going to cover and allow the curds to rest for 30 minutes to heal and to expel some whey. So 30 minutes later, you'll see a fair bit of clear whey has been expelled. Now we're going to increase the cut size to 1.5 centimetre or 5/8 of an inch cubes. So just doing the vertical cuts there. Try not to split the cuts you've already done. It's a little bit tricky, but you can do it. So there's the verticals, and I'm going to use my curd harp to do the horizontals. Just ever so gently. It was a little bit difficult, but managed to get it done. There we go. Once around. So just checking the temperature. Should still be at 38 Celsius, 100 Fahrenheit. If not, just heat it up a little bit more. Just gently lift the curds. And for 15 minutes, we're going to gently stir them, but not continuously. So during the 15 minutes of stirring, you just stir every 5 minutes, just give them a little bit of a lift to prevent them from matting. You don't want to expel too much whey. You need it's a fairly moist cheese. So after you've done the 15 minutes and a few times stirring, I'm going to dip off the whey to the level of the curds. So I'm just using a sieve there and a ladle to scoop out the whey down to the level of the curds. Okay, so once that's been achieved, you can make a little bit of ricotta out of it, probably not too much out of that whey, but we're going to move over to the draining area, or my sink, which has been sanitised. I'm going to ladle the curds into 2 square baskets evenly. So 1 scoop in each basket, and then continue to fill them all up. There we go. Didn't take too much at all. So these are square feta baskets that I'm using. They are not open-ended. They've got a bottom to them. Makes it a little bit easier when we're going to flip them. So you'll need 2 draining mats as well. So place a mat on top of the basket and then flip it over. This is to create a flat surface on the top straight away. Don't let it drain too much. So we're going to flip the curds over every hour for 3 hours. So an hour later, it's drained a fair bit, so just flip it over. And do the same with the other one. I'm just placing the mats underneath just to make them drain a little bit easier. And there's a bit of a close-up. So it's formed a nice surface on them now. And an hour later, they've drained quite a bit this time. So we're just going to flip them over again. So this is at the 2-hour mark. So they're probably about reduced it by about a third so far. So last flip. Just banging them so they settle into the moulds. So we're going to allow the cheese to drain now for 8 to 10 hours or overnight. So remove the cheese from the baskets and place it in a ripening box that has a elevated mat in it. Now you can use any plastic tub and possibly a bamboo mat, which will work. Just keep it off the bottom so the whey doesn't soak, the curds don't sit in its own whey. So I'm going to ripen at 4 degrees Celsius or 39 Fahrenheit for 5 days. So that's about the initial height of the Crescenza. So don't forget that every couple of days or 2 days we are going to turn over the cheese just so it doesn't form a pyramid shape. We want it like a rectangle shape. And if there's any whey in the bottom, then tip that off. There wasn't when I turned this one over. So the cheese can be eaten at 5 to 10 days and ripened up to 4 weeks. Now, if you do ripen it up to 4 weeks, this is what happens. It grows some mould. This is after the 4 weeks, and you can see a nice white coating of white Geotrichum Candidum. Now, that won't ripen the cheese per se. It'll stabilise the curds so it won't go off.
Well, there you have it. That's how you make Crescenza or Stracchino. And it's a lovely little cheese. As you saw in the close-up there, you've seen that there's a white mould all over it. Now, if you're going to eat this fresh, then you won't need to add the white mould, the Geotrichum Candidum. Now, but because I knew it was going to mature for a long time, and at the time I'd lost my voice, so I couldn't do any videos, so I had to wait a little bit longer. I was quite fortunate that I had added the Geotrichum Candidum. So let's get in and see how this cheese tastes, shall we? It looks, well, furry, which is good. Very light coating of mould, white mould on top. Let's cut into it. It's supposed to be a very soft, mild, ripened cheese. And I've got some crackers here just to see what it tastes like. On my plate, let's go for it, shall we? Let's go a corner. Now, like I said, it had been maturing for 4 weeks. Soft paste. Smells lovely. Smells very sweet, which is good. And put a little bit of that on the cracker with a white mould. That is a very delightful little cheese. The paste isn't runny. It's soft. There's no bitterness, no aftertaste. Just a nice, round, well-rounded little cheese. Very lovely. I think it'd be very nice even with even when it's fresh. So this is 4 weeks old. Very nice. I'll have a little bit more. Cuts really well too. It's got a certain richness about it, which is good. There are no sharp acidic flavours, so very smooth, well-rounded cheese. Well, I call it probably semi-fresh as well. So, very, very nice. I like this cheese a lot. Now, it's so smooth. Well, I've been told anyway. You can spread it. Which you can. Spread it on your cracker. Spread it on bread for breakfast. I think there's lots of Italian recipes that use Crescenza or Stracchino in recipes. So it's a very well-known Italian cheese. And yeah, mainly made with cow's milk. I think if you made this with goat's milk, it'd have a little bit of a tartar flavour, and I think you certainly could make it with goat's milk using the same method. Maybe use a little bit less rennet, but yeah, real nice cheese. Ooh. So it spreads well as well. That's a keeper. I've got 2 of those. I'll have to wrap one up in in paper, so on some wax paper or maybe even some micro perforated paper that camemberts and bries are normally ripened in. It'd be interesting to see what happens if I did put it in micro perforated paper and see if the centre starts to go a little bit runny. But seeing it only had Geotrichum Candidum and no Penicillium Candidum, it's preserved remarkably well. The paste structure is the same as what it would be when it's fresh, so I'm very glad I added it. Anyway, so you can buy the ingredients for this cheese over at littlegreenworkshops.com.au. We've got a vast range of moulds and cultures over there, as well as equipment and kits that you can check out. This show is supported by patrons as well as YouTube members. If you want to support the show financially, check out the links below. All right, thanks for watching, Curd Nerds, and I'll see you next time.